Yeah, okay. So this is the layout we are going to be creating. This one here is a super typical, simple, and boring layout that we used to use many years ago on almost any website out there. So we don't use them that much anymore, but it's a good example for beginners. These are the tag names we are going to be using, and these are the sizes. So let's take this as a blueprint and make this in brackets. So I will go to brackets, point to, let me just pause the video to prepare everything. Okay, so here we have an empty template for a basic website. So let's just use this as a blueprint. So we need a wrapper. I will create a div to wrap everything together. And then inside that part, let's create all these things. So we need a nav. Let's just call it nav. We need a header. And then we want those to be together, but let's just create them individually. So div id sidebar. That's this one here, yes. And the other one is called main. So just main. And then we have the footer at the bottom. And that's it. That's all my HTML. Actually, I don't need anything else. We will be assigning the sizes the hard way. Of course, we wouldn't do that on a real site. The size will be, specifically the height of these items, maybe it will be dictated by the content they have inside. But right now, let's just give them these fixed sizes to see them on the screen. Right now, if you open that website on a browser, what it will look like? Like a white page, right? Nothing on it because we don't have any content. We have a bunch of containers, but really no content at all. So let's just open it here so we can see it, and it's a blank page. That's perfectly fine. Let's start with the first one, and let's make our styles external so you have that idea. So I'm going to create a folder here, and inside that folder that I will name CSS, I will create a new file, and that file will be styles.css. Pretty common stuff. Okay, and I want to have them side by side. So I will close that file right now because it's on the working files. So Command W to close it. Then view, vertical split to split the view in two. Focus this one. So click on this one to give it focus. And then open the style. So now I have styles on the right and the HTML on the left. Let me just hide the sidebar and start from there. So let's go with the first one. And we need to relate them somehow, right? We need to link them. Remember that tag? So inside the head is like something like link the external style sheet to the document. That's what we are going to do. So it's with a link. You need to give it the href and then the location of the file and then a rel of style sheet, and that's it. Now they are linked. Okay? So let's start with the nav itself, and then we do the wrapper so you can see the nav. So let's go with the nav. How do we select an item by its tag name? Using the tag name, right? So nav. So the size of the nav is 900 times 50, and the color is, I don't have the color there. I think I did. No, I don't have the color, but let's use any blue. So width, 950. So the width will be 900 pixels. You have to put the measure there, 50, and then a background color of, let's put a blue that we find here because I really don't have the correct color. Now we will be able to see that div because it has a fixed width and height and background color. So if I just save this and refresh, now I'm able to see that div. Let's center it, and for center it, we are going to center the whole wrapper. So even before that, even though it doesn't matter the order here, but I do like to style the items in the order they appear on the HTML because it's easier to find them later on. So we do have a class wrapper here. How do we select an item by its class? Point. Yes. And then let's give it a width, a size, 900. And then a margin auto to center it, right? So this will center the content on the screen. Now we really don't need this because by default the nav will try to expand and fill its container. So even if we remove that, the result would be exactly the same. We do need that one because without a specific height and without content, we wouldn't be able to watch that. If we add some content there, then yeah, sure, you are able to watch that tiny part of the content, right? But we don't want that, and we want to have a specific height just for building the layout, even though later on we can change that, okay? So that's the size. let's go to the next one, which is a header. So we go here, header, and the header has a, again, we don't need to specify this actually because it will grow by default. So we do need that one. So the height will be that. And the background color, let's give it that background color of that guy. Okay, so if we refresh it, now we have those two guys there, and so far so good. Let's make the fun part begin, so this part where we should have this file. So let's start with the sidebar. Let me add some enters here so I can scroll more freely here. So the sidebar, how do we select that div? It has an ID, so with the hashtag, yes? And that sidebar will have what? Just a height of, well, let's give it its width. So that's its width. The height is 650. And the background color, I think we do have it, right? Yeah. So that guy here. Now we will be able to see that sidebar is this one here. And that's perfectly fine. Okay? Now let's do the same for the main. And then we will float them together. Okay? So let's style the main window. Main. What do we want? Well, it should be 660, 650, and the background color is something like this one that I forgot to put in. So it doesn't really matter. It's 660, the height is 650, and the background color, let's put this aquamarine or whatever. Doesn't really matter. So now we have that here. Yes? By default, as you can see, we have the first one and then the second one stacked up at the bottom. That's how they normally stacked on. Okay, so even though this one is smaller than this, and even though this one fits exactly in here, because if you do the math, the container is 900 and the sidebar is 240, and this one is 660, so they add to 900, right? So it should fit there, but the default behavior is just to stack them out. So what we have seen so far is that we can use the float to move them. So what will happen if you float the sidebar? Remember, it will remove this one from the document flow, put it on a different layer. So for this div, this will not exist, making this div just align right here. Yes? Because it will just ignore, so it will be underneath this one, and we will be able to see a small part of this one, just this part. Yes? So let's float the sidebar to actually make that happen. So float left. That means move to a different layer and try to put all the way to the left. We also have a float right that does exactly the opposite. Moves to a different layer and tries to move to the right part of the document. Okay? As far as it can. So let's check that out. And yeah, of course, that's what happened. If we will be able to see underneath this, we will see that green part here, right? Let me just show that to you. If the main has some content, we are not able to see it. Yeah, it should be here, float left. Why are you there? You should be more on the left. I wanted to give that sidebar an opacity of 0.5 just to show you that we can look a little bit underneath that one, and the content on that one should be on the left. I don't know what is putting it here. Like the margin for the text is taking into account that sidebar. Okay, doesn't matter. So let's just change that. And the problem is that we want this guy to be here. What will happen if we float it to the right? What will happen? Well, this will move exactly to that space, right? So now it's floating to the right, and we are able to see the whole content from that guy. Now if I write something here, the content is there. So that's kind of weird that it's moving the content with the floated element because it's not quite ignoring it at all. But yeah, okay, I will check that later. Now, we don't want that. We want exactly the opposite, this one on the left and this one on the right. So we can float both of them. Yes? In order for both of them to be on the same layer and be side by side, just as we watch on the video. So let's float this one to the left, and let's float that one as well to the left. And that works, because that will make them, this one be on the left and this one be on the right, exactly as we wanted to. Okay? Let's style the footer, and with that we will have some problems there. How do we select the footer? By its tag name, And the footer has some width and height. We don't need to specify the width, but let's do it anyway. And the height is 100. And the background color, sorry. The background color is this dark blue color. Sorry. Yeah, and now it's there, but we cannot see it if you think about it. Because it's hidden, it's exactly here. Yes? Because we are not floating that one. So it's, again, this one is on the same layer as these two guys. Yeah? These two are on a different layer right now. So it's there. If we put some content, we are not able to see it, but we were able to see through the sidebar. So let's change the opacity of the sidebar, which is this one, and give it an opacity of 0.5, so half transparent. We should be able to see it. I think I didn't save it. Or if it's on this part, I really need to check what's going on with that main div here. Or where's my content? It's moving it to the bottom. Why? That's weird, because it's signed on the footer. I don't think it has to do with my... Well, I will add a CSS reset anyway. So remember, just go to CSS Reset, and normally I use this one from Eric Meyer. Just start copying here, closing here. That's all you need. Just copy, close, go to your CSS, and put it before all of your styles. Okay? So first the CSS Reset. This is a whole reset. Let's just move it here and pack it up. This is a reset, and then my styles kicked in. I did wanted to make that change to see if anything changes, but nothing changes. So I still don't know what this text is coming outside the div. I think I didn't wrote anything wrong here, but I will double check that before uploading the file later on. Let's just for now erase the content and check how to move that footer to the bottom where it belongs. And again, there are different ways we could achieve that. One way would be to also float that item. Yes? Because if you think about it, if you float that guy as well, it will now be on the same layer as these two. But since it doesn't fit at the side of this one, because we have a wrapper, remember, it will move itself to the bottom or to the next row available. So if we float the footer, then it will work. And now it's at the bottom. There's another way we could do get the same result. Remember the video? How do we tell an item to position itself below any other item that it's floating before him? We use the clear, exactly. So the clear is just as in Spanish that you use something like que libre ese espacio. Algo así, más o menos. That's where the clear comes in. So clear the space that you have where you have floating elements, and then just move behind them. So we could as well, instead of floating it, just tell it clear. We want to clear items that are floating what? To the right or to the left? To the left, because they are floating to the left. Normally what we do is, normally we want to move an item below anything that was floating. So we don't care if it was floating to the left or if they were floating to the right. Just move yourself behind them or down them, okay? So normally we use the both, yeah? This will clear anything or move itself below anything that was floating before him. Yeah? The visual result is exactly the same. I already refreshed the page. You don't see any changes. That's fine because the visual result is the same. Even though right now they are, you could say that this element is on the same layer as these two. Yes? Because it's not floating, but it's clearing the space of these elements. Yes? Does it work? Now, if we would like to have some space here, yeah, such as in the homework, let me make a pause to solve the question. So we were, trying to add a margin. Now, here's some interesting part. For example, what if we want to add some space here? Let me change the color of that left one so you can see it more clear. It's the sidebar, right? So the background color will now be, you can quick edit here and make it a little bit darker. That's nice about brackets. I like that. So I want to really be able to tell it apart from the rest. So let's give it a different color. So that. Okay. So what if you want to add some space in between here? Well, you can add a right margin to that guy. Also, you could add a left margin to that guy. The problem is that, as you can see, they fit snugly together right now, and they both add to 900, which is the size of the wrapper. If you add one tiny pixel to any element, they won't fit on the container, right? Because it adds to more than 900. So if I go to the sidebar and add a margin right of, let's say, 10 pixels, they don't fit anymore, so this one moves down, right? So if you are going to be using this box model super fixed, which we no longer use that often because we favor a percentage unit and more fluid layouts, more fluidly adaptable layouts for different screen sizes. But if you would like to solve this, you must subtract either 10 pixels from here or from here, right? Yeah. So in this part, I will remove them from here, so this will be 230, and now they do fit, and we do have that space there. So for your homework, everything adds up nicely just by adding those margins and those sizes, so it shouldn't be that complicated, okay? Let's try to, before we are done, let's finish this video with some absolute positioning and some relative positioning. That's also very helpful. Specifically, for example, here, or in the header, or for example here, or whatever you want to. What if you want to have a box here? Or what if you want to have a if you want to have a box exactly here, or wherever you want to? For that specific situation, you can use an absolute positioning rather than a relative. A relative or a static position, which is the default one, you already know what it does. It tries to put everything to the left and to the top and stack everything there. That's the normal position of the item. That's called the static one. Now you can change that to, for example, an absolute. An absolute item can move more freely within a container. That's the idea. So let me create a small box here and start moving it. So this is the what? The header, right? Yes. Inside the header, I will create a div with an ID box. And that's it. So I will go here, and after the header, actually, because inside here I have that guy, I will select it. Now you can use box, of course. Maybe it's a little bit better if you say header box. You are being more specific and telling the browser where to find that guy. Let's give it a width of 100. Let's make it a square, and let's give it a background color of whatever. So this color. Okay? So now we have that box there. Normal position, perfect. What if you want it exactly here, in the center of the item? Remember the way to center absolute position items. So let's try to move it with a position absolute, and please be very aware of what will happen just now, because you will be making these errors many times. I've seen it semester through semester. So try to get the idea right from the first start, okay? So the story goes like this. We are going to change the position of this box. By default, all items have a position of static. That's the default. So if we write something like position static, of course, nothing will change, and that's it. If we change it to absolute, okay, nothing seems to change right now. But if you have an absolute position item, you can move that in relation with its own container. And this is the story. It will align itself with the first parent that it finds that has a position declared different from fixed. So that's a whole quite long sentence. So let me show you the example. If you want to align that guy, let's say here, to the right of the container. Yeah, you will use something like position absolute, and then you can use a right 0. That means leave 0 space between you and the right part of your container. But the container that it will refer to will be the first father that it finds that has a declared position. So if you check that, if you check here, who is the father of this box, of this div? The header. Does the header has something like position something here? Sorry, the header being this guy. No. So it does not have a declared position. So this guy will just happily ignore it and say, I will not align to you because you don't have a specific position declared. And if we do that, we save that and refresh it, you can see it ignored that guy and then move and search for the next father. Who is the next in line for this box? Not the header, the next one. The wrapper. Yes? Does the wrapper has a declared position? No, it doesn't. So it will ignore it. Who's the next one in line? The body. Does the body have? Not. We didn't write anything about the body. Can I go any further? No. So it will align to the body. Meaning that if you make the body smaller, it will always align to that box. Yes? Now we don't want that to happen. We want to align it inside this box. So we have to specify or declare a position for this item. That item is a header, right? So we just go position. Now here you could also be adding an absolute. Now most of the time you move absolute items within a relative container. That's the easiest way to do this stuff, right? So we don't want to actually move this guy anywhere. He is fine where it is. We just want to give it a declared position so that this guy aligns to inside this container. Yes? So we normally use the relative. This won't harm this guy. This won't change it anyway or its position. And this will make this guy exactly where we want them to be. Okay?
What if you float the square?
Yes, you could also float it on this scenario, of course. Let me just comment that guy. You could float it to the right. Perfect. Same outcome. Exactly the same. But what if you want it here? Or what if you want it here? Now it's a little bit more difficult to float it. Or what if you want one here and want to have another one exactly here and another one exactly here because you want to. So sometimes just floating items is not enough and you need some more precise tuning for the final position. Okay. Right? That's when the position absolute maybe comes more handy. For example, here, if you just add, 20 pixels to the right, you will be leaving 20 pixels here. If you go something like bottom 10 pixels, what will happen? It will try to leave 10 pixels from its bottom line to the bottom of its container that has a position declared, which is a header. So it will be what? It will be more or less here, something like this. Yes, with 10 pixels here to the bottom. Yep, there it is. So with a position absolute, it's easy to move items to whatever you want to. Remember how do we center something to the center both horizontally and vertically with a position absolute? Do you remember how do we do it? We use a left 50%. This will move it exactly started at the half of the container. And then we transform, translate x minus 50%. Sorry, that looks awful. And you can add this in between. These guys, no, I think, no. Actually, you don't wrap them. Yep, just like this. Now it's center. And for the vertical part, we do something like that. Top 50%. That will move it 50% from the container. Yeah. And then inside this transform, we move it a little bit to the left, and we also move it a little bit to the top. Yes? And this will center that guy. Yes?
I honestly have a little hard time with the translate. Like, what's the difference between the translate is it only for up?
So this is how you would do it with a position absolute, but there are kind of easier way of getting the same result. That's why they invented the Flexbox. Flexbox. So I think I already showed you this page. If you haven't checked it, please check it out. It's a kind of a good tutorial. It's recently updated, so should be good to go. And so what we are going to use that header as a container, as we can see here, and center the content. We want to center it both. Well, we can use it with the space between, but what I want to is the align items. So we want to center it to the center. So what will happen if, I will just leave this as an option here, because I will be uploading this code later on. So center absolute position items. And this is what this does. Okay, and let me just end the comment there. So now I'm not moving it at all, so it will be where? It will be here, yes, by default. And now let's change or make it the other way. Let's make this is the container, right? So let's treat this container as a flexbox. And for doing that, you just, as it says here on the first line, what you need to do is the container should have a display flex in order to be treated as a flexbox. Okay? So let's just use here, we don't even need that guy, but I will just leave it there in case you uncomment that line. So display flex. If you change that, nothing will happen here, nothing happens, but now you can change the way items are rendered inside that container. For example, you can vertically center items with align items, with align items center. So let's use that container and set align items, center. Yes, and the result would be what? We will center that guy vertically. Yes, and there should be a way of centering items horizontally as well on Flexbox, right? So we can use the justify content space between maybe. Looks like it should work. Let's give it a try. So justify content space between. And if we save that and just refresh, nothing happens because we don't have more items there. What will happen if we add more boxes there? Well, to start with, they shouldn't have the ID box because that will be applied to only one item. Remember, when you use the ID, you can only have one element with one ID, right? So let's change that to class and duplicate that guy. So now we have two boxes, okay? Now we also need to change this selector, right? Because we don't have any ID box. We have a class box. So this selector should be a dot, okay? And now what we have is, we have the space around. So what a space around does is that it will try to, space between, that's the one we use, it will try to move the items, as you can see, to the left and right. So maybe the space around or the space evenly will do a different thing. Yeah, for sure. If we use the space evenly, they will be evenly spaced within the container. Yes? So instead of space between, space evenly, what was the name? Oh, come on. Where are you? Justify content, space evenly. But I don't have it there, apparently, but it should work. Space evenly. Let's try it out. Yeah, it works like we wanted to. Now, if we move that guy out of the way, we get the final result we wanted. And maybe it's easier for you to understand. I will stop the video right now.